Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about growing Vandas indoors. Now Vandas are a bit of a tricky orchid to grow indoors just because of the way they normally grow in the wild and the way I grow them in the greenhouse, and other people do as well. Normally Vandas grow in a tiny little basket with little to no media, and their roots just droop down. Sometimes their roots can grow 3 or 4 feet long, and when you bring them into a low humidity environment like a house, then it starts to get tricky because you're always having to spray the roots to counteract the lack of humidity in the house, and you end up with a overly time-consuming chore that, as well as spraying your Vandas, you're spraying your walls and your house. So what I wanted to do, since it's winter time, and my greenhouse usually stays around 55 degrees at night in the wintertime, is I wanted to bring some of these guys in the house this winter. So I planned ahead of time. These Vandas here are ones that I got in the summertime or in the spring last year, so I haven't had them in the wintertime yet. But I decided that because my big Vandas take up so much room in the greenhouse, I wanted to try an alternate way to grow a Vanda, so that when the greenhouse got a little cold, I could bring them in the house and put them in a south-facing window. So what I have done is I have potted up the Vandas in clay pots. I use clay pots instead of baskets because in this case I'm wanting to keep some of the media, or some of the humidity in the media. Baskets would allow it to dry out too fast, so I thought clay pots would be a good alternative to the basket. Another reason I use the clay pots in this case, and I normally never use clay pots for orchids just because they're too heavy and the orchid roots stick to them too much when you're trying to transplant them. It adds weight to the Vanda pot itself, so they're less likely to tip over. Now these ones are small, they will get huge. The one on the right here, or I guess it's your right or my right, this one here was a Kiki. It was given to me this summer. It's going to have an absolutely huge leaf span, and the roots will get 3 feet long. So I need to sort of account for that ahead of time, and I will be able to put it into a bigger pot eventually if I need to. This one in the middle here, it gets quite tall. It can get 4 or 5 feet tall. And this guy on the end here, he's a little bit smaller species, but he's still going to have a span of 2 feet by 2 feet tall with kikis that start appearing. So I'm going to bring it a little bit closer and let's have a look at the media, because I have done the media a lot different for potting up Vandas for indoor purposes as well. So let's move in a little bit closer with the camera. Okay, so let's look at this one first, just because the media is showing the best. In this case, I have used the clay pot, which is actually going to act as media as well, and I have used actually large stones and large pieces of bark. The stones and the bark are just there basically to keep the roots in place and weigh them down. Again, these are roots that could grow just in the air normally, so the media is not going to be overly important for them. What is going to be important in this case is controlling the moisture levels. If this was packed full of moss in here, the roots would be way too wet. So it's probably 50% rock, which is going to hold no water whatsoever, and 50% bark, with a little tiny bit of moss on the top, and the Spanish moss, which is slowly creeping into everything and getting everywhere. Now I'm going to move it over one orchid so you can see a little bit different technique here. Check out this orchid. So the roots are actually growing down and using the pot as media. The roots go all the way around the side and keep going. So hopefully I can maintain those exterior roots as well as I can the interior roots, because they're going to be in a lot drier environment. So what I've also done here, it's the same mix, but I added a top dressing of moss to the mix, and that is just to control the moisture a little bit more. So underneath the top dressing here is the same mix. I planted these on the same day actually, or potted these on the same day. So it's just rocks and bark. And this little top dressing of moss here just keeps it a little bit moisture inside, and I want to see the difference between the two for over long term. But the rocks in the pots are going to add to the stability And yeah, so hopefully these guys will grow indoors a little bit better than they would if they were in a plastic pot tipping over, or if they were in a basket drying out. Anyways, so there's a few tips on how I grow Vanda type orchids in pots and how I'm going to grow them indoors. I hope you liked this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks for watching.